Hello Banu, this is my feedback to your presentation. Very good slide design. Here this is a little weird after the big Nazarbayev University. Same color, but just looks so different than the previous one. It's a little strange. Maybe you can slightly redesign it if you want to. But overall it looks good. The information is there, clear, everything is fine. Very nice slide here with the outline. Very similar to, actually, this is a good application of the principle that great minds think alike. This is very similar to Nargiz's first slide, which is good. You guys have both. This is really nice design, very clear, everything is nice. Overall, the design is good throughout the whole presentation. Here, really nice self-introduction. I would say there's maybe too many words here. If you can reduce the wording a little bit, that'll be good. But overall, that's fine. So you got some experience, this and that, and the other really nice. Just wonderful first introductory slide. I would just reduce the wording a little bit if you can. So let's see. Here there's not much you can do. Maybe, yeah, there's really not much you can do to reduce. If you can just find a way, I don't know. Or maybe it's not so bad. After all, I really cannot think of a way to reduce the words because everything is important here. You can just keep it the way it is. Just a little busy, but that's fine. No worries. Now this is kind of difficult. I'm not very sure that you need this visual aid. There's a million different causes here. And yeah, I don't know that you need this. When you talk about your research interests, I think you should focus on the importance of the issue instead of this not very helpful visual aid with a million different diseases and infections and whatnot. I mean, it's okay. It's interesting statistic, for people to see if you want to do that. But yeah, I don't know. If you want to keep it, you can keep it. But I would just say, instead of this visual aid, I would just actually, if you're talking about the importance of cardiovascular, I'm not even sure what the point is here. Because your topic is cancer treatment. If you were really interested in treating cardiovascular diseases and you wanted to show that they are so much, they account for so much more than all the rest, then this would be an interesting chart to include. But I don't think that's what you're arguing here. So I'm not very sure that this is a very helpful visual aid. Just talk about why the issue is important, how they can help these nanoparticles. I think that's what you want to talk about. This is much better. A pie chart. Again, look at how many different diseases here. I think this pie chart could stay. So you're talking about cases around the world. And what are you arguing here? Are you arguing, again, if you were discussing one particular type and you said, look, it makes such a big percentage, let's say lung cancer, then this would be a helpful graph. But just to say how many cancers around the world, I'm not sure about the usefulness, but it looks much better than the previous one. This is not so helpful. This is a little bit better. I'm not sure. You can keep it, but I don't see that why it would be helpful to you to describe the different kinds of cancers, and this one here it says just other cancers. So what would be the point here? The only reason you would use this would be to say, look, lung cancer, the blue is so big, or the yellow is so big, or the pink is so big, right? That's what you would say. Imagine if your research was into lung cancer, you could say this is a very important. It counts for 11%, which is a very big section or something. But other than that, I'm not sure. Combination of nanoparticles in macromolecule. This is kind of like a nanoscale for your font. I mean, I have no idea what this is. mRNA, is that what it is? I'm really straining my eyes to see. It's a bit smudgy, the font is very small, and it's not really that helpful because I think it's way too complicated for non-specialists to understand. And remember, this presentation is mostly for non-specialists, because those people will be from all kinds of majors in your audience. So I don't know if they will be able to appreciate this with the small letters and the smudginess of this graph. So yeah, I'm not sure about this graph. You can use your words, and instead of describing the technical details of the combination of nanoparticles and micromolecule systems, you can just talk about why this is preferable to other methods that have been in existence up until now. You can just say why that is better than the other ones for non-specialists to appreciate, not so much about the technical detail. Here again, a bit smudgy. What are we showing? I'm sure there will be a point that you are making here about this. Looks almost understandable, but I'm not sure what you're trying to do here with this. And here again, it's a little bit maybe too technical. Are you trying to show how little these are, how small these nanoparticles are? I think this could be effective if that's what you're trying to say, but I'm not sure what the point of this slide is, so I cannot comment on it. If you're saying they're so small that blah blah blah, if you compare them to this, okay, maybe that's a good point to make. But other than that, I'm not very sure what this slide is for. Okay. It is actually, might be a good idea to include the scale. Let's say you have one big circle or something, or a big shape like this, and let's say that's the size of a human hair, and next to it you have this tiny little dot, and you can say, look, in comparison with this big circle on the left hand side, imagine it's like a huge big circle or a big elongated shape like this in one part of your slide, and then a tiny little dot, and you say, look, this is the comparison between a nanoparticle and a human hair. Imagine how small a nanoparticle is if the human hair looks so big in comparison to it. For a non-specialist, that's kind of cool to understand. So you could include a size comparison, a nice visual aid, sort of in your introduction, in your research interests. Why not? Just for non-specialists to be able to appreciate how small the size of these nanoparticles is. So yeah, good idea. Visually, it's effective. Conclusion, okay, M. I'm sure you will expand on that. And here you have your reference list. Q&A session, good. This is already your 11th slide, so and first, just you don't need a thank you for your attention slide. Just say it out loud. You don't need that kind of slide, so you can end with this. Even for the Q&A, you can invite questions. You don't need a slide necessarily, but if you have one more slide to spare, your 10th slide could be Q&A. Fine, no problem. So overall, I would say here you will be spending 3 minutes on your personal profile, but remember, if you go back to the guidelines, when you talk about your research interests, just really on your future goals, just make it about yourself. You can talk a little bit about the importance of the issue, why these nanoparticles are so important, but you would need other visual aids to do that, not so much the number of diseases here. Just project your thoughts into the future. Tell the audience, I want to be this, I want to do that. These are my interests. This is what I'm interested in. Nanoparticles, they're so cool. They can help us solve these kinds of problems. So if you want to include a visual aids with what kinds of solutions nanoparticles can help us with, absolutely do that. As long as the visual aid is simple. Right? Same goes for this one. I would not use these visual aids. Although I do like the shape of the pie chart generally. It's nicely pictorial. It's alright. But I don't see why you would use them. Okay? And then, after you're done with your introduction, then you need to have a slide that says specifically discussion of source 1 or discussion of source 2. 1 or 2 slides depending on how many sources you're discussing. And then if you go to the guidelines, you'll see you have to discuss how these sources have shaped your interest in the topic. So this presentation is not so much about content, it's about you, your research interests. Even the discussion of the sources is about, for instance, you can say, this source, Bastaki et al., was very helpful to me because it helped me understand blah blah blah. It gave me a new direction for my research. Up until that moment, I was mostly focused on this kind of issue in my research. When I read Wang et al., I realized that I should be researching that kind of issue. And of course, you will say a little bit about the issue. So yes, there will be a little bit about content. But first of all, it should be easy to understand by non-specialists, and that should be actually reduced to a minimum, because it's mostly about how these sources helped shape your interests in the research. Okay? And then there should be a conclusion slide, as you already have. And that's it. That's your 7 minutes. 3 of those minutes are about you, 1 is for conclusion, and 3 is just how these sources have helped give you a good direction in your research. And maybe you could say, in one of these sources they mentioned this type of usage of nanoparticles in the future. I intend to focus on that. It really inspired me to research that. So that's the kind of language you should be using. It's not focused on content. Okay, I hope this is helpful to you, Banu. Bring all your positive energy to the individual presentation, check the guidelines, and you should be fine. Good luck.